for coming. You can probably tell by my accent, I'm not from around here. I'm from England, a place called Liverpool, home of the Beatles, etc. I'm actually from this place here, a university called Liverpool John Moores University. We're what you class as a new university, post-1990. We have about 25,000 students, it's quite a big place. And I run the master's program in facilities management there, and I also run a couple of other, a bachelor's program in building surveying, and another master's program in commercial building surveying as well. I'm here to talk about the theme that's up there, about the link between customer feedback and customer satisfaction and facilities management. It's something that I think doesn't have a huge profile often, and it's kind of at the underbelly of everything that we do. And the aim of my research is to try and promote it more and generate, as Jerry said, a research report which gives some good practice in how we can maximise customer feedback in the jobs that we do. So, before I carry on, just as a bit of an icebreaker, we're very passionate in Liverpool about soccer, or what we call as football. The guy there, I don't know if any of you have seen him before, he's our captain of Liverpool Football Club, soccer club, called Steven Gerrard. And there is a link between this man here, you all know him, I presume you know him, LeBron James. There is a link between LeBron James and Liverpool. Do you know what it is? Nobody? No? No? Okay, he owns part of Liverpool Football Club. Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't even know it.
Strange one.
Does he know it?
Yeah. No, he does know. He's been there. He's watched the game, and he's met all the fans, and he's met all the kids from our neighbourhoods and stuff. It's pretty cool. By default, he has ownership rights to Fenway Sports Group, who own Boston Red Sox.
Right.
And Fenway Sports Group bought Liverpool Football Club a couple of seasons ago, so by default he owns a stake in our club. So there's the link, but not many people know that. So we have a tie between sort of the NBA and here. But this is the main reason I'm here. I don't know if any of you have heard of this organisation before, Fulbright, but they're a huge research establishment. Very, very big in the US, and they promote research with the US and different countries on all sorts of aspects, health, science, property, and I was fortunate to win an award a couple of years ago now. It seems like yesterday, but it was actually a couple of years ago, through their Property Award, which is sponsored by this organisation. And I don't know if any, they're not very big in the States, the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a minute, but they're the largest professional institute in the world. They have about 160,000 members, and they cover all sorts of property disciplines, land surveying, quantity surveying, construction management, project management, facilities management. The list goes on and on and on. They're huge in the UK and Europe, they're huge in Asia, and they're starting to take off in the US. You'll hear more from this professional institute over the next few years, I'm sure. And I know Jerry has already had interaction with them. So I'm here through this remit, and I'm being hosted very kindly by Georgia Tech in Atlanta. So to be able for me to come out here and do this research, I had to be hosted by somebody. That was part of the award. Professor Kathy Roper runs the master's program there. She's the past chair from IFMA. I know Kathy quite well, and was very fortunate that she was happy for me to come over here. So I'm in Atlanta for 4 months. I've been here since April. I go at the end of next month back to Liverpool, where it's all cold and horrible. It's actually hotter in Liverpool at the moment than Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta's got freak weather. It's like, I think I jinxed the place when I got there and brought the English weather. I seem to have brought the English weather there, and then somebody else has taken the Atlanta weather over there. So that's why I'm here. Hopefully that gives you a little introduction. And now I'll go more into why I'm here. That's just a bit more about RICS and its global reach. And these slides will be made available so you can have a look at it. And I'll talk a little bit more about RICS as I go through, because there's some interesting documents that you guys might be interested in. This is just so I'm being professional, and I always forget to give a structure on what I'm going to talk about, but these are the kind of things that hopefully you'll be able to take away. I'm going to try and give you a bit of appreciation about the importance of customer satisfaction in FM. Give you a bit of theory, because I'm an academic, I can't leave without giving you some sort of theory about service quality and perception and expectations of service and things of that nature. And there'll be a few little frameworks and concepts that you might be able to take away there. And then really the crux of it, which overarches all of it, is just to critically discuss with you how we actually capture this kind of data. How do we, we work within a people industry, right? Everything's centered on people. Everything's centered on customers. How do we actually professionally manage that feedback? What do we do with it? Where does it go, if at all? Is it a priority? Or does cost override everything? We'll see. And this is what I'm going to talk about. I just thought it would be nice to introduce some of my viewpoints coming from the UK and some of the key big issues to do with FM that are hitting the radar from a UK European perspective, which would be interesting for you guys over here. Then I'll go into the more theoretical side about what is service quality and where does this thing about customer satisfaction come from, which leads nicely into my research about how I'm trying to promote that and maximise that amongst FM professionals. Is that okay so far? Are you still awake? Yeah?
Yep.
You can understand me okay? Yeah?
Yes.
Good. Excellent. If you do have any questions as we go through, just throw them out there, okay? So I've called this the FM challenge, just to start with. Forget customer satisfaction. I'm going to lead into that in a minute. This is just some big issues that I think are facing our industry. Some of them have been around for donkeys years. Some of them are more prominent today. The first thing, which is always a challenge, and this links to customer satisfaction, and this is coming out in a lot of the research that I'm doing, is what services are we talking about here? And this thing called facilities management just gets bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. It may not even be called facilities management in years to come. But what does it cover? Well, it covers a whole bunch of things, and the umbrella of services that are under facilities management seems to be never-ending. And there's an issue there, isn't there, around customer perception and what they think you do. And you've probably had these discussions with people. I didn't know you did that. Are you the person who delivers that? Oh, really? Oh, okay. And that immediately creates this issue around customer perception and customer satisfaction. And there's no real solution to that apart from trying to get yourself out there. And a big theme that is coming out of my research is about transparency. Alice and I had the conversation about an hour ago about this thing about, traditionally the best FMs are the ones who you don't hear about, yeah? Unless there's a problem, don't worry about it, it's good. That's not the case anymore. FMs want to be visible, they need to be visible, because otherwise they get lost and people misinterpret what you do. So that's the first big challenge. And again, this one's been around for a long time, but as this industry professionalizes itself more and more and more, and as we kind of bunch more services into this, then this perception gap could get worse and worse if we don't make ourselves more visual. And when we think about managing and coordinating so many services, someone, a very good facilities manager in England said that you need more skills to be a facilities manager than you do a brain surgeon. I'm not sure that's entirely true. But when you look at all the things, have you seen this before, the FM pie? The FM pie is really interesting. This tries to break down all the different things, all the different activities that a facilities manager would typically be involved in. And there's a hell of a lot, isn't there? If you think of the day-to-day things that you do, or you acquire a new building, or you start working for a client in another sector, you have to learn all of these weird and wonderful things. I know somebody who runs a shopping centre, a big shopping centre in England, and they had an issue about trees, and they had to spend about 3 months learning the cycle of trees and you know, how they grow and what they need to be fed and all this stuff. And they've never learned anything like that before. And then the next month they're doing something else, yada, yada, yada. So, okay, we're not brain surgeons, but I tell you what, there's a lot to do. And there's a lot to learn all the time. And it never stops. And the thing which fascinates me with this, and this guy's great, he's from Canada, Michel Thoreau. You can get his book. It's a really good book, really simple book on FM.
Yeah.
Is this red chunk here. Okay? And what strikes me with this FM Pi is that the majority of the things that facilities managers do, and what I do, is all about management and leadership. Okay? And, you know, the most common thing people say is, how did you get into FM? I fell into it, yeah? I fell into it from an engineering background, or a human resources background, or a finance background. We've all fallen into it from somewhere. I fell into it very much from this area here, okay? And from a service improvement background. I used to work within housing services and figuring out how we provide better services to 16,000 tenants in the homes that we operated. And all of these types of things, I would have a team surrounding me that can do those things better than me. But as this industry gets more professional and as it progresses, because relatively speaking, compared to say project management or construction management and all these more traditional property and construction disciplines, we're still quite young. I think that debate's getting a bit old now. That we're a young industry, it's new. It's not new. We've been doing these things for a long time now, but relative to these other traditional property and construction disciplines, it's still fairly young compared to them. So we're learning a lot and we're getting more professional all the time. And this chunk here plays a major part in that, about how we manage and lead large-scale facility operations. And that's where I'm coming in with my research. That a lot of the stuff to do with how we professionalize this industry and raise the bar is around lots of other issues, about strategy, about financial management. But this issue around the customer, or sustainability, is another classic example that IFMA, are really, really pushing at the moment. But this thing around what is the customer and what is service, what does it mean to deliver a service? Because that's what you all do. You deliver services. Okay, they might not be as attractive, they might not be as sexy as delivering other services. They're FM services, There's not much sexy about maintenance, is there? But it's a service where you deliver it from start to finish and someone experiences what you deliver. That's a service, yeah? So this issue around the customer and the end user should be a really, really high priority in what I would say is having a balanced scorecard of skills that we all do. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to reinvent the way we all operate. It's just trying to add a little bit more to what we all do and try and raise awareness and best practice with how we maximise customer feedback. I produced this slide to just sort of look at some of the other wider issues that are hitting our industry at the moment. And these are kind of buzzwords or buzz themes, if you like, that are very much on the agenda in the UK, in Europe, and what I see in Asia. I do a lot of work in Malaysia. We have students from the University of Malaya who come to our university. I go over there. I also launched a facility and environment management master's program for the University College London, who are the top 5 university in the world. I launched their FM program in Singapore about 3 years ago. And I see a lot of what they do, and these things are very much on the map. And I see these things happening here as well. The cloud. Yeah?
Oh yeah.
Are you all familiar?
Oh, yeah.
I don't mean the clouds in the sky, I mean how we manage data. And that's radically transforming the way in which we all operate. Yeah? And where we store things. Collaboration and partnerships. This is drastically changing, and people's ability to try and enter into a transactional relationship with a client is the proactive ones are starting to look at this more longer term. I don't want a 1, 2, 3 year contract. I want to look, say, 5, 10 years time and say, how can you really add value to me? How can you tailor what you do And I don't mind if you mess up now and again, because I'll work with you to put it right. Okay, if you mess up too bad, that's a different story. But there's got to be a bit of to and fro, hasn't there?
Right.
Yeah, that kind of master-slave relationship is starting to disappear. This one, I'm not going to say anything about that today. Okay, I think you've been done to death on that one. And there's a few other ones I've put up here which are linked to this thing around customer satisfaction and why I think this needs to be a bigger issue, with a bigger agenda item to what we're talking about. What do I mean by the social age? We live in an age now, what I call the social age. We've gone from the industrial age, the information age, with the generation of the World Wide Web and email. Now we're in this thing called the social age. I think it's the biggest revolution to hit us since we had the World Wide Web. What do I mean?
Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter.
Yeah.
What's the other ones?
Yeah.
It's instant communication.
What happens in Vegas stays on Facebook, Twitter. Yeah? You can't do anything anymore without someone knowing about it. And more importantly, put it into an FM perspective. When you seek new work, or you tender for a contract, or you seek to work with another client, okay, you can tell them how great you are, but what they really want to know is, well, what do all your other customers think of you? Yeah? Peer review is the way in which we operate now. When you go on holiday and you search for a hotel, you look at what other people said about the hotel, don't you? Okay, some of them are crazy people that just complain about everything, but if you've got a level head, you get a good idea based on a peer review, rather than what the hotel says about themselves. That's the way FM is going. People who work in FM and who are looking at new contracts and looking at new business, they want to know what your clients think. They want to know what your end users think. And if you can confidently tell them, then you're onto a winner already. Moreover, if you utilize these social network applications to do that, you're onto an even bigger winner. Because that is the way Facebook just, like that, with the click of a finger, it transformed the way in which business works, full stop. It's changed everything. It's changed the whole dynamic of the way we all interact from a business perspective. And if you want a nice little takeaway thing from today, if you like reading stuff about this and how you can link it to business, get a book called Socialnomics. Have you heard of that? A guy called Eric Qualman, Qualman. Socialnomics. Play on words, economics, society. It's very, very clever, and the whole book is about making business sense of all of this stuff to do with social networking. It's a superb book. That silly thing about what happens in Vegas, I'm sorry, I didn't make that up. I stole it from him. But he's got all of these amazing. It's the most watched YouTube video to do with social networks. If you Google Socialnomics in YouTube, you'll get a really nice 5-minute video with like a Fatboy Slim theme tune. You know, Right Here, Right Now. That song. It's playing in the background. It shows you all these amazing facts. You know, it says you know. The Twitter accounts of Ashton Kutcher and Lady Gaga, etc., are big. They have bigger populations, and then it lists a bunch of countries, big countries. You know, not like these tiny little things on the map. Huge countries that they have more followers than actual populations of countries. And you know, it's the #1 internet activity. It's now superseded porn. Did you know? Social network. It's bigger than porn. That takes some doing. Right. So, this whole thing about customer satisfaction and how we get feedback from our customers, it has a bigger implication, because not just the FM industry, every industry wants peer review. They want, in some shape or form, they want some sort of validation. And it ties in nicely to this one, everything as a service. And what I really try and push within my master's course is to I like stealing things from other disciplines, okay? And the big discipline that I love is service management, service operations management. And it's all to do with looking at everything as a service. And when I say that, I mean everything is an experience. You can't grab a service like you can do in manufacturing, where I see Heinz baked beans going down a conveyor belt, and I can pick up every 10th can of beans and have a look at it and make sure it's okay, and put it back down and it carries on. You can't grab hold of services like that, like you can in manufacturing. So how do we measure them? How do you measure how good your service is? How do you measure that experience? Yeah, we talk to people. That's what you guys do. You know, you communicate all the time with either your end users in this building or your clients if you're a corporate real estate provider or a vendor. But do you capture it? You capture cost information. You capture whether you made profits. You capture sustainability data. But do you capture what your customers think? Do you capture perception? And that's where I'm coming from. And I see a gap. From the UK, I did my whole PhD study on this, and I looked at our industry in the UK, and it's very hit and miss on how people capture this type of data. Some people just talk to people, and that's it. That's fine. You know, and it tends to be a small to medium-sized organisation that does that, because they don't have the resources to go any further. You take your big Jones Lang LaSalle's, Cushman and Wakefield's, they've got a whole research team. That's their day job, to analyse this stuff. They have a luxury of that. But it's setting out some sort of parameter to making this a more formal process. Okay. And these other things are getting huge now. You all heard of BIM, Building Information Modelling, yeah? Whole life integration, how FM collaborates with the rest of the life cycle process is, again, it's been around for ages, but it's really starting to hit the map now and saying, how does a facilities manager communicate? Does he or she have the same status or dominance in a construction project as the construction manager or the project manager or the quantity surveyor? Do they get the same opportunity to input into what happens? Because they should be involved right at the beginning, shouldn't they? Right from concept right the way through. That doesn't always happen. In fact, in the UK, it doesn't happen very often at all, from what I see. So all of this stuff's kind of interlinked. We're becoming more social. You know, we've always been customer focused, but we're becoming more peer review focused. And I think the sensitivity of making sure we can capture that is key. And all of this hinges on, for me, the fundamental challenge, and this is the things we've been kicking around for years and years and years, is how do we make this facilities management discipline more strategic? When I say that, I mean, traditionally it's an operational discipline. You do your day-to-day, yeah? You firefight day-to-day, and you maintain the status quo. But really, this is a long-term industry, isn't it? You're not looking at what happens in this building tomorrow. You're looking at what's happening in 5 years' time, maybe even further. And when I say strategic as well, I mean about the strategic value of what FM does. Does your company really value what this function does? Is it on par with other functions like marketing or whatever it might be? Does it have that same status? And trying to raise that bar is the crucial thing. That's why I put the RICS logo on. They've produced some fantastic reports over the last few years about raising the bar of facilities management as a professional discipline. Okay? I look at a facilities manager like I do my GP. I should be able to go to that person with confidence on an issue, and they give me the best guidance possible on that. Yeah? When I go to my GP, he tells me I need some medicine. I'm going to take the medicine. I'm not going to query him. It could be poison, but I'll take it because he tells me that's the best thing to do. It's the same. You know, we're a professional industry. We should regard ourselves in that way. And the work that IFMA does and RICS does, and in the UK we have BIFM, it's constantly raising that professional profile. But it's still a challenge because you'll probably witness this thing a lot, that not every organisation sees the strategic value of what FM can do. It's a constant business investment, isn't it? It's not something where you just provide a fixed budget for every year and say, as long as it runs, look, there's a pot of money. As long as that runs every year, it's fine. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Whereas what we should all be saying is, actually, look at the value I can bring. Look at the link to your core business. If we tweak that, it helps your core business do that. And making ourselves more visible from the bottom up is really the challenge, as well as getting people from the top to recognise what we do down. And this is another report from the RICS. They did a really good survey in 2010. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but it was a snapshot survey of the industry. And this was the most striking to me. On a scale of 1 to 5, how strongly do you believe that FM as an industry has done well in presenting the strategic value it delivers to its customers? So actually, going back to what we said about the visibility of what you do, do you really do that? I didn't know that. And most people, over half, felt that we don't really do a good job of that, making ourselves known about how we can actually improve what the business does. Another big challenge, and then I'll move off these things, is this, it links to that collaboration issue. But a big thing that's coming out of the interviews that I'm doing for this research is around the culture of the relationship that you have with either your end user or your in-house company or your clients, your contractual clients. And it's that spectrum of being very, very transactional to being very, very strategic and collaborative. And you've probably got different customers or clients or workplaces that you've been in where it's somewhere on that spectrum. My argument is that more and more we're seeing this refreshing, collaborative partnership end of the spectrum where people are saying, okay, how can we work as an equal rights partnership rather than this is what I want, this is how you're going to do it, and this is how much little money you're going to have to do it with. And it's trying to move more towards this, rather than arm's reach, arm's linked. How can we work together? How can we create value rather than specify what I want? Okay, so that's just covered some really big issues there, just to give you a flavour for some of the key things that are being floated around from what I see over the pond. Now I'm going to move more into how we can really work on this issue of the customer. I think I've made it clear to you I'm quite biased towards this. I used to work within housing. We call it, the sector that I worked in was social housing, like affordable housing. And I was the research analyst for a housing group. We managed 16,000 properties, and it was a mandatory requirement of the professional body who dealt with that sector to produce statistics on customer satisfaction of what those tenants thought year on year on year. It was a key performance indicator, and if you didn't provide that key performance indicator, you were in trouble financially. So it was just commonplace to me. It was what we did. You've got your profitability indicators, your financial indicators, and then you had these customer indicators as well, and they were the same. They weren't, financial indicators were no more important. This was just as important. And then I kind of fell into FM and started to work within FM services. So I'm thinking, okay, still services. And then there's no sort of requirement to measure what your customers think. And two, people are just doing all sorts of things. Some amazing, but it's very diverse. It's very different, and there's highs and lows on that spectrum. So for me, I'm trying to just raise the profile of how we think about service quality and how we measure that customer viewpoint a bit more. So I thought it'd be useful just to recap on a bit of theory with what we mean by quality service and how we deliver it, which links into, I'm saying this thing, customer satisfaction, but what do I mean? It's all centered on people like this. It's a people industry. Everything is centered on people. Somebody walks into a hotel and they see people like this, and they it gives them an impression of the whole business. You talk to someone on a concierge, it completely changes what you do, and how you think. It shapes your company image. And this is a definition of what facilities management is, and it's one that you might not have seen before. This is quite a prominent academic from England, Keith Alexander. And he said that facilities management is concerned with the care of people and the buildings they occupy to ensure that customers are provided with excellent service and that the public form a favourable image of that organisation. And this links into all that stuff I was saying about the social age. You know, how do we make that favourable opinion? How do that favourable image? Well, one thing we can do is start documenting a bit more on what our customers think, rather than just talking to them every day. The great work that we already do of just day-to-day relationship management, trying to just become a little bit more professional with documenting that and doing something with the data. I also see, God bless them, there's quite a big FM provider organisation, an outsourced company in the UK that I worked with during my PhD. And they did the opposite. They surveyed their customers to death every month. Every month, how are we doing on this? How are we doing on this? I call it survey fatigue. These guys were just tired of them. Well, I gave you a 7 last month, it's a 7 this month. You know, it was stagnated. And moreover, they didn't do much with the data they were collecting to make it worse. So there's a flip side to this. You can collect too much and not do anything with it. So really the crux of this whole thing is what you do with the information, the intelligence you get from your customers. Where does it go? How do you report on it? How do you feed that back into your service? But one thing that's really, really difficult is that what you think is good could be distinctly different from some of your customers. I'll pick on you, Joe, because I know you. But, you know, the people that you're responsible for delivering services to here, I'm sure you know that some of them are going to be more awkward than others. Or there's always going to be someone who's going to be more vocal than another one. And it's just trying to get a grip on that and see how you manage some people compared to other people and trying to come out with some sort of rationale for dealing with all of them. And that's a constant challenge. I love this matrix. I don't know if you've ever seen something like this before, but this is something you can take away today as a useful thing. But this is a sort of matrix to say the attitude of the people that you deal with and the level of activity they have. So the idea is the more negative their attitude and the more active they are, they're going to be a real problem. And they group some of these labels they give to people are quite comic. The T word here. They're the people that you get who just kind of out of the blue just come up. You've never seen them before, and then boom, they just hit you with a huge problem that you haven't dealt with before. You get some people that are always going to be there, and they're always going to object to what you do. You get some people who just feel like they're always a victim and they're trapped. But then what we're trying to do is how do we shift all of these up to here? How can we get champions in our organisation? How can we get allies? And it goes back to the things I was saying before about, you know, we're not hidden anymore. We want to be visible. We want to be transparent. We want to listen to what people say, but actually use that information wisely and show them what they said. Show them how that stuff is working. And fortunately or unfortunately, this is the way our industry is working now. It is more visible. It is more transparent. We, as facilities managers, are more vocal. And we also need to take responsibility to say, yeah, it is my responsibility as well to go back to our customers and tell them what we're doing. And, you know, not survey fatigue them, but in a clever way, let them know what's happening. And this is just my take on what I mean by customer satisfaction. It's all to do with your initial expectation. If you're satisfied with something, you have an initial expectation. And then it's whether the actual perception, once you're experiencing it, is above or below that initial expectation, right? So when I come over here all this way and I go and watch the Falcons play in Atlanta, and I have this expectation that they're going to win the Super Bowl, and then year on year we seem to just mess it up right at the end in the playoffs, I get dissatisfied because when I actually perceive it, it doesn't happen. But you know, it's the classic thing. When I go into my hotel, you know, and I open that door, I've got an expectation, and as soon as you're witnessing and you're in that environment, it could be something different. And that's how we measure it. But that can often fail at different points. This is a nice framework called the GAPS model, where actually that gap between expectation and perception can fail at different internal stages. It can fail in how we understand what the organisation is trying to do. Do they actually want to do these things or not? What's their culture? What standards were set in the beginning? How are we measuring the performance? What's our communication route back to the customer? Are we actually telling them some of the stuff that we've done? Do they know what we do in the first place? And there's various stages or gaps in which that can immediately fail. And we can be responsible for a lot of those. And this is my last sort of concept, and then I'll leave you with the theory. But I love this one. You know, if we're going to be more visible and we're going to be more vocal, we don't want to be taking what we call an inside-out approach, where we think what you need and then we deliver it outwards, but very much doing the reversal and taking an outside-in approach, where we look from the outside and then backtrack to what you're going to need. I can think of my university. If I'm taking it from this perspective, an input perspective, I think, right, well, what do we need? I need lots of lecture theatres, I need lots of classrooms, I need IT facilities. It's all going to be timetabled so students turn up and use the space, etc., etc. But then I look at it from the student's perspective, and they're saying to me, I'm coming to your university because I want something I'm going to remember. I want an experience. I want a top lecture. I want to be comfortable in that room. I want to be hydrated when I get there and fed so I don't fall asleep on you. So I listen to what they say, and then I figure out how I deliver an even better service. So, jumbling all this stuff up, what am I trying to do? Well, somehow I'm trying to make sense of all these things I'm kicking around in my head. But it kind of all just falls back to this very simple feedback loop that as a facilities manager, I deliver a service, but I usually listen to what my client, my customer, the person I'm responsible for thinks. I deliver the service. I get some sort of feedback from them to how that's going, no matter how informal that is. I then might revise my internal processes depending on what they like, what they don't like. And then I go back to them and brief them on the performance, on how that's going. And constantly, that's how we all work. That's what happens, isn't it? You know, you set up a new meeting space. Well, you're in this room now. And then the next time, I don't know, maybe the temperature wasn't right or something wasn't right, and you tweak it and you deliver it better the next time, based on what people say. But often what happens is it gets a bit vague here on how we do that. How do we gain the feedback, which then links to how we revise the process, and how do we feed it back? How do we feed back on the feedback? So I'm trying to raise those standards by being here and learning what you guys do in the US, and I'm going to steal everything you do and make the UK better and forget about you. No, that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is I'm here to actually learn what the US does. I've got a lot of research from what the UK does. I'm going to learn what you guys do and compare it and come up with a good practice report. And the way I'm doing that is I'm conducting interviews here today, to go with the ones that I've got in Atlanta, and I'm going to have about 25 interviews, which are anything between 30 minutes to an hour long. So I've got a lot of viewpoints, and I'm looking at very interesting people who are knowledgeable about these issues in the FM supply chain. Some of them are just provide a single FM service like floor care or cleaning. Some people are corporate real estate providers who provide multiple services, and some people are in-house FMs like Joe. And I'm finding out what you guys think, what processes you currently have to measure customer satisfaction. I'm getting your opinion on them, whether they're good, whether it's bad, if there's something you would improve with what you do. So it's really making you think about what you currently do. And then getting your viewpoint on what you see elsewhere in the industry. And then I'm going to throw all those viewpoints into a big pot, stir them round, and come out with what the current state of play is. So this is, as an industry, how we're managing customer feedback. And then that will trigger a load of key recommendations with what you could do to try and just maybe tweak a little thing that you do in your day jobs. It might just be something simple like changing up the frequency of when you do your survey, or putting a survey in place if you don't have one, or changing the content that was in a survey, or thinking, well, actually, I do too many surveys, I should be talking to people more. And it will give lots of little tips with how you can enhance this. And it all just goes back to this. Have you ever seen the concept of the balanced scorecard before? Okay, Kaplan and Norton. We measure things. We live in a world where we have to justify our existence. We live in a business world where we have to prove our worth and what we do. Everything's based on performance. But this one here, the financial side, usually takes precedence. Because if you don't have money, well, nothing happens. But there's got to be some sort of balance, where we do measure our performance based on a range of things. And services are intangible. You can't put your hands on them. So you've got to look at them from multiple angles. And one of those